Hi, I'm Gail Sokol and welcome to my kitchen. Today we're making double chocolate sour cream shortcakes. And I'm going to make it so that these shortcakes are situated with lots of cream and mixed berries and ganache, like chocolate sauce all over them. It's going to be delight. And they're going to be pre-cut, so they're going to be super easy to bring to a picnic, a barbecue, someone's house for dinner. Super simple. So again, a shortcake is a quick bread, and it's going to be very easy to put it together. We don't have to worry about anything rising, anything like that. This is quick and easy using chemical leaveners. So the first thing we have is our dry ingredients in a large bowl. 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. All right, I have 1/3 cup of cocoa powder unsweetened, and I'm checking my notes to make sure I have the right amounts for you. 1/2 cup of confectioner's sugar. So if you notice, these shortcakes are not going to be as sweet. Confectioner's sugar doesn't always taste as sweet to me. So they're not overly sweet because we're going to get that from our berries and our whipped cream. So that's okay. 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. 1 tablespoon plus a teaspoon of baking powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So I'm going to use my pastry blender, and if you don't have a pastry blender, you can just use a fork or just use your hands. I'm just going to mix this up. All right, I'm just mixing it up. You want to just get all your ingredients homogeneously blended. All right, really simple to do. And just like you would do a pie crust, this is very similar. A shortcake, a scone, a biscuit, they're all in the same family, the yummy family of quick breads. And that's what this is. So we're going to be cutting in 6 tablespoons of cubed cold unsalted butter. And it's really cold, so we're going to be cutting it in. That means we're just going to be pushing down our pastry blender until the butter becomes pea-sized pieces. And I like to rotate my bowl as I'm doing this, so I get as much surface area in as possible. And the fat is not completely mixed in because we want it to coat the gluten strands. So listen to what I'm saying. It's going to coat the gluten strands of the flour so very little gluten will form, which means lots of tenderness, which is what we want from a shortcake. If the butter sort of sticks into your pastry blender, just push it out. And again, you can use a fork and a knife. And keep it going till it's pea-sized pieces, very tiny, but still very noticeable. We want that butter in there into our dough. Because what happens, let me explain to you what happens while I'm doing this. The butter, when it's in the dough, actually melts in the oven. These little tiny pieces, these little tiny pea-sized pieces, they melt in the oven and they leave spaces. And these spaces fill up with steam, right? Moisture, which is already in the dough, and it turns to steam in a hot oven. And these are going to bake at 375. And that steam is going to puff up on the dough above and push down on the dough below it. And you're going to get a little bit of flakiness, and you're going to get some tenderness, a lot of tenderness, because it's going to coat, again, like I said, those protein strands on the flour, creating lots of tenderness. All right, so we're just about there. So now we're ready for our liquid ingredients. It's really a two bowl process. And notice what I'm doing. I'm taking the pastry blender and I'm putting it down. I'm not using it anymore. Not using it anymore. But before I add my liquid ingredients, we have to get our double chocolate in, right? We only added unsweetened cocoa powder. So this is 1 cup of mini chocolate chips. I like the minis because they actually blend in really nicely instead of the bigger ones. But if you want to use big old chocolate chips, semi-sweet, or you want to chop your own block of chocolate, semi-sweet, bittersweet, do it, no problem. So I've got 2 large eggs, and that's the whole egg, 3 tablespoons of whole milk, and you want whole milk. If you can't use dairy at this point, and you really, even though you're using butter here, if you want to use something like coconut milk, and you can even use like a different type of dairy in here as well, although it might cut back on your flakiness. 1/2 cup of sour cream. If you don't have sour cream, can use yogurt, not a problem. All right. And 1.5 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. I always say that word pure because you don't want imitation. And you're just going to whisk that up, break your eggs up, whisk it. So this is really 2 bowls, dry, wet, and then you add one to the other. No pastry blender because that's going to mix in your butter too much. So put that pastry blender away. All right, once we're all done here, we're going to mix this in. And I'm using a slotted spoon. I love my slotted spoon. If you want, you can use a wooden spoon, rubber spatula, whatever you want. At this point, I'm going to blend these ingredients together. You're not going to go crazy and really mix because that will develop gluten. That will develop toughness and too much strength and structure in these beautiful shortcakes. And it will be a weird sort of dough because it'll look dry, but if you got your hands in it, it's not going to be dry. And once it's all blended together, you want to get that flour and cocoa powder incorporated. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little rest, only like 30 minutes, in the refrigerator. I'm going to put it in plastic wrap. And what I love to do, I just made a batch and I froze it. I froze it. So you can actually take this dough and freeze it once it's all mixed together. Just label it so you don't go into your freezer like in a year and say, what the heck was this? All right, so a lot of people do that. So I'm going to actually use my hands to just sort of get that extra flour. And I'm going to take this beautiful baby blob, it's sort of a blob, and I'm going to put it right onto some plastic wrap, which I have already. All right. And you're going to wrap it. And since one hand is full of beautiful dough, I'm not going to use that hand. Push it down so it's sort of maybe a 1.5 inch high disc. I'll show you what I've done. Okay. And then we're going to chill this for about 30 minutes and then we're ready to roll. So while our dough is chilling, we're going to make our mixed berry sauce, and that's going to be topping our shortcakes. So I have 2 cups of mixed berries. I have blackberries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. Use anything you love, okay, about 2 cups. And then I have about 1.5 tablespoons of granulated sugar. And I'm going to put that in here, and I'm just going to mix this up. And you will see the sugar only for a few minutes. And then you're going to put this back in the fridge and you're going to chill it for, like I said, 30 minutes to an hour. It's going to make its own sauce. That's your mixed berry sauce. You believe it? What's happening is there's a lot of water in berries and the sugar is going to suck that water out. Sugar is known as a hygroscopic ingredient and it's going to suck that water out. And that's what osmosis is. So the water's going to go from a higher concentration of itself, which is in the berries, and it's going to be drawn out into the bowl outside and around the berries, and that's going to make the sauce. So that's sort of cool. So I'm going to go put this in the fridge, and our berry sauce is done. All right, so my dough has been resting in the fridge for 30 minutes. And that's just to let all the gluten relax a little bit because we were sort of working it. And now we're ready to form it and roll it out into our shortcakes. And you can see chunks of butter in there and you're going to see chocolate chips. You see the chunks of butter? That means it's beautiful, tender, and it's going to be flaky. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of flour. I'm not going to take too much. Oh, I can smell the chocolate. Oh, that smells yummy. And I'm going to flour a little bit over my rolling pin, but I don't want too much on there, so I'm going to do it not directly over my shortcake. And I'm just going to gently push down on it and rotate it because I'm only going to go into a circle. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you how to do this real fast, really, really fast. And all we want is a circle. So circle's the name of the game today. And we want it maybe about 3/4 of an inch thick. All right, 3/4 of an inch thick. And we want these shortcakes, they're almost going to be formed like scones because we want them to be pre-cut. So when you get to that barbecue, when you get to that, whatever you're going to, it could be a party, a fancy party, it could even be a day wedding, whatever you're doing, you want this pre-cut so people can just grab a slice, okay? So what I'm doing now is I'm going to cut this circle, and it's a rough circle, I know that, into half. All right. Separate them out a little. Now we're going to cut them into quarters. Now we're going to cut them into eighths. You can leave them as eighths, but they're sort of big. If you like them big, you can leave them. But we're going to cut them into 16ths. So do it again. And I use my bench scraper or my dough cutter, but you can use a knife. Whatever works for you. If you want to cookie cutter them out into circles, you can do that as well. But this is so easy. And I'll show you how we plate it later, and you'll see how pretty it looks. So I have a pizza pan, like a 14-inch pizza pan that I've lined with parchment paper, and I'm just going to put these very close to each other all around. All right. And we preheated our oven to 375. And these will bake between 22 and 25 minutes. You want to be careful with chocolate because you can burn it very easily, the cocoa powder in the shortcake, so you want to be careful. And yes, I know they're awfully close together, and I want them to be, because if they tend to meld together and bake together, that's okay. So we want them. That's going to be part of our presentation when we put them on our plate. All right, so that's it. I'm going to be putting them in the oven, 375 for about 22 to 25. So now we're ready to make our chocolate sauce, which is really a ganache. Super easy, heavy cream and chocolate mixture. So I have half a cup of heavy cream that I brought to a boil, and I'm going to add 1 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips. And I'm just going to slowly whisk that deliciousness together. And that should make a nice chocolate sauce that we can actually put all over anything. So it doesn't have to be just our shortcakes. It can actually be on ice cream. It could be on a chocolate brownie, anything you want. And if you chilled it, you could actually use it as a frosting, as a chocolate fudge frosting. So ganache is so versatile. What really matters with ganache is the proportion of heavy cream to chocolate. So the more heavy cream, the more liquidy, the more fluid the sauce becomes, and more saucy and less frosting-like. The more chocolate, the thicker. So you can actually make a truffle, you know, the candy truffle, and we'll do that sometime on a video. So you can see how this has become this beautiful sauce, and I'm still trying to get some of the little bits of chocolate to melt. And that's it. That's your actual sauce. So I'm going to pour it into a bowl, and I'm actually going to bring it to room temperature so that we can drizzle it over the whipped cream and the mixed berries and our shortcakes. But if it's too hot, it's going to really melt down our whipped cream. So we got to be careful about temperature here. And the other thing is, we can actually put this in the microwave if it ever gets too cool, that it becomes more frosting-like. So as you can see, this is perfect, and I can show you what I'm going to do. Just going to pour it in here. How lovely that is. Isn't that beautiful? It's beautiful. There it is. So our chocolate sauce is ready, and all we're going to do is wait a little bit, and then we're going to put it all together. So we're ready to actually top our double chocolate sour cream shortcakes. They came out of the oven, they cooled. I transferred them to a beautiful serving platter, and there's 16 of them, remember, so we can serve 16 people, unless of course people have seconds or thirds, you know. So I have some stabilized whipped cream here, and if you want to see a great video on how to make stabilized whipped cream, one that won't fizzle out on you, one that will stay fluffy and light for at least 2 days, go to my website, gailsokol.com. I have a great video for you on stabilized whipped cream. So the first thing we're going to do is sort of dollop the whipped cream all over. This is the order I do it in, nothing set in stone, you know. But if you like to do it a different way, or you like more whipped cream, please do whatever you wish. I just like to sort of smear it around a little bit. Looks beautiful. And that mixed berry sauce that we made, remember I promised you this beautiful sauciness. Look how glazed each one of the berries is now in that beautiful sugar glaze, okay? So again, we're gonna put that on top. Gorgeous berries, blackberries, strawberries, raspberries, any berries you want. You can use gooseberries, you can use sliced plums and peaches if you want. Whatever you like, you use it. If you want to just use one type, you can as well. Oh, I think that looks so pretty. This can actually just make any party or any get-together more festive. Just by doing this, right? We're not done yet. Remember that ganache we made, that beautiful concoction with heavy cream and chocolate? Well, it's cooled down a little bit, so it's not going to fizzle out our whipped cream. And I'm just going to drizzle it all over. Remember, our shortcakes aren't that sweet, so we could use a little, you know, something extra to make it a little bit more special. Oh, that's so gorgeous. All right, one more spoonful. I can't help myself. One more spoonful. I think that's it, right? The berries are pretty well coated. And then the piece de resistance, just a little confectioner sugar. Just a little bit, just to make it look real pretty. Now, this is a recipe from my book, Baking with Success. Now, if you look at the picture of the recipe that I have in my book, it doesn't look like this. This is a different take on it altogether. It's the same recipe, but what I did was, instead of cookie cuttering each shortcake out, I made half the recipe for the dough and actually got 16 pieces out. So if you made that same recipe, the full recipe, you would get 32 pieces of shortcake. So you could do this 2 times. You could feed your whole family reunion, all right? So for more videos, go to my website, gailsokol.com.